Tonight, 9 days to shut down as organized labor directs all public sector workers to stay at home indefinitely as it declares a nationwide strike over government failure to declare state of emergency over Galamsey.
Organized labor has decided to declare a nationwide strike with effect from October 10th, 2024. We are therefore calling on all workers to stay at home starting Thursday, October 10, 2024.
But will the private sector join the strike in solidarity against illegal mining? And the top story is always brought to you by Telecel Connecting Energies and also Holy Insecticide Spray and Coil. Enjoy a holy sleep. Brace yourselves for a nationwide shutdown. They backed, warned, and threatened. Tonight, organized labor is set to bite hard. In the last couple of hours, led by the Trades Union Congress, labor has directed all public sector workers to stay at home indefinitely as it declares a nationwide strike over government failure to declare a state of emergency over Galamsey. The strike will kick in 9 days on the 10th of October. My colleague Blazer Soga just returned from this emergency organized labor meeting that was called after government failed to meet its 30th September deadline. It gave it to meet 5 demands. And Blazer, which groups were there today taking this decision?
Trade Union Congress. It's deemed as the mother union of all organized groups within the country. So by far, we're talking about the largest grouping of worker unions in Ghana. The meeting commenced earlier this morning with some informal engagements, a reason for which the press was not granted access to this high-level meeting that was happening amongst leadership of the organized labor. But then, somewhere around midday, it was clear that organized labor was going to proceed with the ultimatum that they had given government. A couple of days back, organized labor issued a statement calling for, quote, a declaration of an emergency, a state of emergency as they would call it, asking government then to fulfill about 3 other demands that they had tabled, including the need to revoke the LI 2642, I beg your pardon, which talks about mining in all forest reserves. For organized labor, the basic demand they have is that all mining equipment ought to be moved away from water bodies, first of all, and then the next step is to also seize all forms of mining within forest reserves. So whether legal or illegal, once you're a small mining operator within a forest reserve or a biodiversity hotspot, they believe that the government ought to halt all of these activities. And it is basically the reason for which they are proceeding further to ask for revocation of the LI 2462, which various groupings across the country have been raising concerns with. The LI actually is 2462, and Evans, you recall that civil society groups a couple of days back raised concerns about how this law was giving excessive powers to the president to single-handedly give authorization for mining to proceed in biodiversity hotspots and forest reserves. So organized labor then feels that based on what the recommendations of the group was, first of all, to halt mining in all of the forest reserves, we must proceed further as a country to halt also mining, both legal or illegal, in forest reserves. And that's why the meeting then concluded today that after a cursory assessment of all of the demands that were tabled, government had failed to meet the requirements of all the demands that organized labor had put on the table. So the Secretary General of the group, Joshua Ansah, then proceeded to announce the outcome of the meeting today, which is for organized labor to take the next step.
Following the expiration of our deadline and the failure of government to meet our demands on illegal mining, that is Galamsey, organized labor has decided to declare a nationwide strike with effect from October 10th, 2024. We are therefore calling on all workers to stay at home starting Thursday, October 10, 2024, until the government accedes to our demands.
And that there is the Secretary General of the TUC at this particular meeting announcing the indefinite strike. This will be on the 10th of October. So we actually have 9 days to go because it's starting from today. And they want all of us to embark on this strike. Now, the question we need to clarify, though, we know that before today, the private sector had said they will join. Particularly, we've seen the Media Coalition Against Illegal Mining, made up of media houses, the GJA itself. Was there any clarity on how that will be implemented with the private sector? Were they even there today in solidarity?
In fact, I must point out that the reason for which organized labor, in fact, delayed in making that emphatic pronouncement that they were proceeding on a nationwide strike was basically because of the divisions that were picked up within the groupings. Present was almost all the labor unions. You know that even those in the private sector working, even in the mining sector as well, most of which have private representation, they were present there at the meeting. But there was a division because some of the members of the group were unable to tell if these were largely from the private sector, were raising some initial concerns about going on a full-scale nationwide strike. But it appears that there were others, who felt that this was the time for organized labor to proceed. Notable faces were there. Professor Ransford Jampo, obviously representing, I believe, the interest of the University Teachers Association of Ghana. We had the Public Sector Workers Union. You had almost all the groupings there that were represented. And it is instructive to note that even the leadership of the civil and local government workers, CLOCSAG, they were also represented, which means that technically almost all public sector workers, because CLOCSAG represents workers in almost all of the districts across the country, they will be involved in this action. And in fact, they were well represented by their leader, Mr. Isaac Bampo, who of course I saw in the meeting there. So it appears that this will be a full-scale activity, irrespective of the emerging concerns that this must be a scaled down or perhaps a progressive approach towards implementing this industrial action. But as the majority groupings will have it within the broader spectrum of organized labor. It has been resolved, whether you like it or not, that almost all workers in Ghana in 9 days will be laying down their tools simply because they feel the assessment is that government has not done much to tackle the menace of illegal mining.
Blessed, thank you very much. I want to bring in right now Professor Mahmood Adakrugu, who is the UTAC National President. Professor Mahmood, thanks for your time here on Top Story. Also joining me is Dr. Kwabena Nyako Otu, is the Director of Research at the TUC. Dr. Ken Ashigbe is the convener of the Media Coalition Against Illegal Mining, also joining us right now. Prof. Mahmood, let me start with you. You've gone straight for a nationwide strike. Normally, in organized labor terms, when you're dealing with industrial actions, you give us a roadmap. That possibly will begin with wearing of red armbands, possibly protest. Strikes are always the last option. Why the last option, now the first option?
Good evening, Evans, and good evening to comrades who are on this call, and good evening to your listeners. Well, this is a matter of existence, and so when your life is threatened, you don't go around beating about the bush. You go straight to whatever action that you have to take to save your life, and that is what we've done.
And this will reflect on the 10th of October. Why 10th of October? Why not tomorrow?
Well, the reason is that we needed to at least give ourselves some time to get ourselves properly in place, and then some of the associations and unions also within organized labor have some other internal requirements to meet. And so we needed to give ourselves that time to be able to meet those requirements, and then we'll move on. That's why we didn't go immediate, but gave ourselves some days to be able to scale through all those requirements.
Let me bring in your colleague, Dr. Kwabena Kotu, who's the Director of Research at the TUC. Dr. Otu, safe to say that you gave yourself up until the 10th of October to strike because you're hoping that in intervening period, government may act to avert the strike?
Okay, so the principal reason why we gave this has something to do with what my colleague just mentioned. Some of our unions and some of our workers have internal requirements they have to meet. And I mean, if you look at the law itself, to strike, you need to give at least a 7-day notice. So it's not merely because you want to give government time, because we had given government time already. Since the last time you issued a statement in which we gave a deadline of 30th September, government has had enough time to be able to respond. So this period is merely to allow our members go through their internal processes and also prepare ourselves in terms of communication, information, and everything to be able to embark on a successful strike.
So that's primarily why you're embarking on this. This is unprecedented, is it not? Because, yes, organized labor, you embark on strikes in the past, but it always has to do with workers' direct welfare issues, salaries, conditions of service. Is this, correct me if I'm wrong, is this the first time you're seeing organized labor take on a subject like this and proceeding on a strike on a national issue like Galamsey?
Yeah, it is. But, I mean, as you may have also seen over the years, organized labor has not shied away from national issues that are of concern to every Ghanaian. And remember that when we talk about organized labor, we are talking about workers and their families. And as long as an issue concerns workers and their families, it's an issue for organized labor. Of course, the nature of this issue is that it's also an issue for every Ghanaian. So as we undertake this industrial action, we are also appealing to all Ghanaians, all well-meaning Ghanaians, to support organized labor, to bring pressure to bear on duty bearers, to be able to do what they have to do to arrest this phenomenon once and for all.
I hear you saying that you want all Ghanaians, private, public sector, to join you on the 10th of October to withdraw services across the country.
Yes, I mean, the communique is clear that we are embarking on a nationwide strike, and it didn't specify any group of workers that will do the strike. All workers are being called upon to lay down their tools.
On that note, stay with me. Let me bring in Dr. Ken Ashigbe. He's the convener of the Media Coalition Against Illegal Mining. Are you also embarking on that strike on the 10th of October, Dr. Ashigbe?
Well, thank you very much, Evans. And today could not be a good day, a better day than today. We organized labor as part of the Ghana Coalition Against Galamsey. So on that day when we had our press conference, where organized labor also held their press conference, one of their leaders was sent to our press conference to come and announce the request from government, which was almost the same as what the Media Coalition was asking for. And it was at that event that we backed the Ghana Coalition Against Galamsey. So, yes, we're just waiting for this meeting. And so now that the meeting has been had, the Ghana Coalition Against Galamsey is in full support of the stance of organized labor. And we're going to rally the whole of Ghana. And we, the media, will have to find ways in which we still provide oxygen for the strike and still do the mobilization whilst we are still also able to embark on the industrial action that we're talking about. So definitely this is something that we're going to do. We are desperate people, Evans. We're people who are being poisoned. We're people who are being deprived of water. We're people whose cocoa is under threat. We're people who currently have renal diseases worrying us. We're people whose sexual reproductive systems are under attack. So desperate people take desperate actions. And so definitely the leadership has been demonstrated by organized labor. We're going to be mobilizing all the 10 blocks of the Ghana Coalition Against Galamsey to really push this particular one so that government will realize the fact that we are the sovereign. We are the sovereign. And we're taking a cue from what the President, His Excellency the President, said on the 7th of January 2017. We are citizens and not spectators. And this particular action, as is directed as the current government to take action, when organized labor met the interministerial committee, they added another demand, which was originally in the demands of the media coalition, asking the two political parties, the NDC and the MPP, to also commit themselves to these actions that we are asking the president to do. We don't want a situation where any politician would want to take advantage of this particular action for their parochial partisan interest. We also do not want any politicians coming into the open and telling us that they are in support of this action, but then they will go into the pit and then go and be telling people other things. So we would require of the NDC and MPP especially to their presidential candidate to openly sign up to this particular action that organized labor and the Ghana Coalition Against Galamsey are asking the president to do, a state of emergency over our water bodies and the buffers, and the state of emergency in the forest reserves, and then a revocation of LI 2462.
So on the 10th of October, I expect Dr. Ashigbe's telecoms chambers offices to be locked indefinitely.
Definitely. So definitely we're going to be appealing to all the private. So you see, the point to note is that if the Ghana Coalition Against Galamsey has businesses also as part of it. So definitely we also are suffering. It's something that affects our. So the chamber will take a decision, once this has happened, to also definitely join this because it affects all of us. Some of our masts and all of that are under threat.
So safe to say that the chamber hasn't yet taken a decision to join the strike.
So definitely, the chamber would have to, based on this decision of the Ghana Coalition, all the professional bodies who are involved in this, including the chamber, would have to take that particular decision. Because it is not something that only the public unions are going to do.
So everybody
would have to be involved. Including even the media.
Yes, it isn't automatic, is it, that all private sector groups that had previously expressed support for this will automatically go on strike because the decision does not lie with individuals who have been speaking. I believe it doesn't even lie with you alone to make the decision to go on strike or not at the chamber.
No, so again, I just asked, you had Labour, you saw what Labour did today. Labour had to have a meeting with its organs to be able to get this to happen. And definitely this is a good call. So I'm pretty sure that various businesses would have to also engage their ranks and files and then through that process be able to take that decision to definitely join this particular action that is being taken. Because as I said, this is a desperate people who have to save themselves from being poisoned, from being killed. So definitely all businesses, including, the chamber I work for and all of that, will have to consider this particular action and also, subscribe to this. And that's definitely one of the things that we will be doing. I can tell you for a fact, that the Presby Church has asked their congregation to start wearing red bands. I can tell you that there are other major religious bodies that are also mobilizing. Some of them have planned even on the 11th, a day after organized labor embarks on the strike, to also have a prayer protest, that would culminate in presentation of petitions and also calling on God to act. We are engaging the chief imam so that we also can get, support from that side. We are going to be engaging the traditional elements that are the various chambers that are amongst all of us. And so this is something that is in the national interest, that all of us have to mobilize, to make sure that in support of the action that has been started by organized labor, we all mobilize and make sure that the right thing is done. It's about saving ourselves today and tomorrow.
This is you are a convener of the Media Coalition Against Galamsey illegal mining. How do you expect the media to carry out this strike?
So on when the day we had our press conference, I remember when the president of the GJA was reading our statement, we had talked about what we were also going to do. The fortunate thing is that on last week Friday, the GJA had an EGM where an emergency general meeting. One of the issues that were considered was this issue of Galamsey. And the EGM gave the National Council the mandate to be able to take action. So we will be looking at modes in which, as media, we will be able to give oxygen to the strike, be able to serve as a forum to mobilize all workers to engage on the strike, whilst we still are able to take some action ourselves. And some of it could include, a selective blackout on some elements of the state, that we don't cover some of the things that some of the states would do. So those are conversations that the Media Coalition and its component members, the GJ, Primpag, Giba, would all have to take to say, how are we going to do it? For the first point is that on Saturday, the president of the GJ asked all media houses to use the hashtag Stop Galamsey now, and that you're already seeing that happening. You, multimedia, CTFM, all of you have kept the pressure on. And this is what, this morning, for example, all media houses had the pressure on labor as well. And we see the outcome of what it's become. So for us in the media, from now up to, the 10th, the first thing we definitely need to be doing is provide a lot of oxygen to the action that has been called by Labour. And Labour is not calling on only itself, it's calling on all Ghanaians. And so we need to mobilize every Ghanaian everywhere in the languages that we understand to show to these politicians, to show to our leaders that we really are asking for them to help stop the killing, the poisoning, the destruction of our water bodies. And let everybody know that this is something that as a country we are united on, and we all mean that this thing has to stop.
And if you're just joining us, a major developing story on the war against illegal mining, organized labor declaring an indefinite strike from the 10th of October. I still have with me Professor Mahmoud, who is the UTAC National President, and Dr. Kwabena Nyako Otu, Director of Research at the TUC. You just listened to Dr. Kenneth Shigbe, convener of the Media Coalition against Galamsey. Dr. Otu, let me come back to you. This is supposed to be an indefinite strike. Is that even realistic?
Okay, before I answer your question, the last time you spoke, I was the Director of Research. Now I'm the Deputy Secretary General.
Oh, Deputy Secretary General, of course. That's a promotion indeed, and congratulations.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, I don't understand what you mean by being realistic. I mean, we have specific demands for the president, for government to meet. And this declaration of strike is until those demands are met. And if you ask whether it's realistic or not, I really don't understand what you mean.
So I asked that question because if you say indefinite and the government doesn't come through with the state of emergency, all workers in this country would have laid down their tools to eternity, in essence. It doesn't sound like realistic, is it?
So be it. Until our demands are met and until Galamsey is stopped, we lay down our tools.
Professor Mahmoud, you believe that this protocol that you're about to implement is realistic for UTAG, where university teachers across the country will be out of the classroom indefinitely?
Very realistic, in my estimation.
I mean, is it though? I mean, considering that of course, what you're fighting is a noble cause, and government obviously has shown over the last 3 weeks that they're not in the position or won't or refusing, if you like, because that really is what is happening, to impose a state of emergency. You expect that there will be unintended consequences, will there not? Because doctors will be on strike, nurses will be on strike, pilots will be on strike. Everybody's on strike. This nation will grind to a halt. The impact may be more than what we're feeling on the Galamsey sites. The law of unintended consequences.
That's correct. And it is hoped that those that are selected to lead us will think carefully about those unintended consequences and do the right thing before even the night, the 10th of October. Otherwise, sometimes if you have to treat a sore, you have to cause some pain. Otherwise, you don't be treated. So we are fully aware of the intended consequences that this action may cause us, but we also know the long-term consequences that the ongoing mining activities can cause.
Well,
we are better off taking the pain now on behalf of generations yet unborn. And that, we believe, far outweighs whatever the unintended consequences will be when we take this action from the 10th.
I mean, Dr. Otu, government still has 9 days. What would it take to avert this strike?
So, I mean, even before I respond to that, those unintended consequences you are talking about, we believe are the triggers that should push government to act. And our ultimate objective is a government intervention, a decisive intervention that lead to an end to Galamsey. In a manner everybody can declare in his or her mind that something is being done or has been done about Galamsey illegal mining activities, particularly those that take place in river bodies and also in our forest reserves. What could be done to avert the strike is simply government meeting us. And those demands are clearly spelled out in the statement we issued, in which we gave the 30th September deadline.
I mean, Dr. Ashibi, I know you've been trying. You've written to both leaders as far as the parties are concerned, hoping to get a response, a positive one, that they will pen their signatures to a document committing to end illegal mining. Have you heard anything back from any of them, John Mahama or Dr. Baumia?
No. As at now, we've not heard anything yet. Now that the declaration has been done tonight, the Ghana Coalition Against Galamsey, we have a meeting tonight. So we'll be looking at all of that. And now that Labour has also declared that, and that is also one of the demands of Labour, we'll be working with Labour and everybody else to see what response we get. But it is important for the two political parties to note that the action that has been declared is also on their heads as well. They also have actions that they need to take. And so, even when you talk about unintended consequences, what can be worse with when you are being systematically poisoned? What can be worse than when your water bodies are under threat? What can be worse? You think that the woman who responded to a nature's call and fell into a pit and died, or that young man from KNUST who had to now come back and defend his thesis, died in the pit? You think that this strike is worse than that for him? Can anybody put any money to the lives that are being lost? So what we are fighting again, I tell you, we are desperate people who have been pushed and we are dying slowly. Some have gone ahead of us already. And if we don't stop this at this particular time, when tomorrow they are writing the history of the people who poisoned themselves to extinction, we also will be mentioned. And we will reject that. We will not. We will not allow that to happen. And we'll have to take all actions, as painful as it would be, to make sure that we can save ourselves from this.
And Dr. Ashibi, I want you to stay with me because shortly we'll be hearing from John Dramani Mahama. We'll also be hearing from Dr. Baumia's campaign team on what has happened tonight. I want to get your reaction to that. Stay with me on this. And if you're just joining us, a major developing story tonight, organized labor in an unprecedented move, declaring nationwide indefinite strike in 9 days. That will also include the private sector commitments already coming in for this. First time you've heard from the Deputy Secretary General of the TUC himself that they are taking this decision to embark on the nationwide strike on a subject such as Galamsey, an issue that doesn't have to do with conditions of service, salaries, or pay. You really want to stay with us for this because we'll be hearing shortly from John Dramani Mahama and from the campaign of the current Vice President and the flag bearer of the New Patriotic Party. And Faustina, are you bracing yourself just yet for this nationwide shutdown? It's in 9 days. Organized labor just declared it on illegal mining. They actually backed, they warned, they threatened. And there were many who thought, this is not realistic. They can't certainly embark on an indefinite strike. They just announced just that, and they are going to bite. just in the last 30 minutes, we've been hearing from organized labor on this, and they are determined to embark on this course of action from the 10th of October. Between now and, of course, on the 10th, they are now going back to their respective unions to get a mandate for this to happen. One other demand they've added, the last time they met with the government ad hoc committee, interministerial committee, was to say they want both parties, the leadership of both parties, as in John Dramani Mahama and Dr. Bawumia, to sign a pact to say they will end illegal mining. Today, we've been hearing from John Dramani Mahama on this particular subject. You know, he's been meeting the clergy. They asked him a question on this. This was his response.
Small-scale mining is recognized by law and must be done in a manner that does not harm the environment. We'll audit all concessions, mining concessions that have been issued, and identify the beneficial owners of such concessions. The concession owners will be held responsible for any illegal mining that takes place within their concession. If illegal mining or Galamsey takes place on your concession, that concession will be taken away from you. We will promote responsible mining and wage a war against illegal mining or Galamsey. This will involve an aggressive program to reclaim our polluted water bodies, degraded lands, and our devastated forest reserves through a Tree for Life and Blue Water initiative. In this endeavor, we shall ban the granting of new mining leases and activities in our forest reserves. And we shall amend the minerals and mining law to impose stiffer punishments on people who mine in water bodies. Under my government, all appointees will be prohibited from engaging in legal or illegal mining. If you want to mine, go and mine. You can't serve in government and mine at the same time.
Thankfully, joining me right now is Dennis Miracles Obwaje, the Director of Communications with the Dr. Bawumia campaign. Thank you, Miracles, for your time here on Newsnight. Give me your reaction tonight. I mean, your man, Dr. Bawumia, is still the Vice President. Tonight, Organized Labour has declared an indefinite strike from the 10th of October. The private sector, as we've been hearing from Dr. Ken Ashigbe, who is the convener of the Media Coalition Against Illegal Mining, expected to join also media too. How is he taking this?
Well, Evans, I think that the organized labor, for whatever reason, has the progress of the country at heart, and whatever it is, there is some 9 days before whatever internet action takes place. I believe that government will engage them to ensure that we find a way and not to jeopardize the progress that we've made so far in terms of recovery of our economy, whilst we address all other pertinent issues. So let's see how it goes in the next few days.
Do I hear you say that between now and the 10th, they will get a declaration of a state of emergency on this matter of illegal mining, which is what they are asking fundamentally?
I don't think it's just an issue of somebody getting. It is an issue of conversations around what is best for the country and what best works for the country. I think that organized labor has made some specific demands, but government has a responsibility of also leading the state of affairs, and organized labor would definitely also hear government out in terms of what would work in the interest of the states. I don't think that organized labor has in any way said that whatever they are asking for is cast in stone. They may have made some demands, but is that demands what is in the best interest of the state? What are the consequences of each of the demands in there? How does it impact in the forward looking of the country? I mean, we're trying to fix one canker, but in fixing one canker, do you destroy the others? So that by the time you're done fixing this canker, you go back to also look for another solution for this. So these are conversations that I believe that the government is already having with organized labor, and definitely I am confident that there would be some middle ground before the 10th.
Organized labor has said that they don't want a middle ground on this matter. You either announce a state of emergency, you ban all forms of mining on water bodies or in forest reserves, as they've also asked for, abolish that LI that allows mining in forest reserves, or this is what action they will take. They have actually sat down with the ad hoc committee that was formed on the back of their declared intention to embark on this course of action. And they came out of that saying they were still not satisfied and they were still going to go ahead, which is what has happened. They've passed the point of dialogue and middle ground.
Well, I don't think that in a civil society, in a democratic dispensation like ours, dialogue is ever out of the conversation. Dialogue remains part of the conversation at all times. And I'm sure that organized labor would avail themselves to that in the same way government would also avail themselves to that. I don't think that there is ever the point in a democratic dispensation that dialogue is off. We're running a state. We're running a state that requires that the future and the present of this country is protected at all times. And I believe that there's nothing cast in stone. If everybody decides to be adamant, we cannot have a civil state. And so I believe clearly that government and organized labor would continue the conversations that are ongoing. And I'm very sure, very, very sure that before the 10th, there would be some way around this without necessarily having to shut down this country. The impact of shutting down the country, I don't think is something that organized labor would want. Neither is it something that any other citizen of this country would want. And so we have to find a solution around it.
Talking about solutions, as a vice president, has Dr. Bawumia himself been directly involved in trying to find this solution?
Well, government has been engaging, so I don't know what you mean by directly. Government has been engaging, so I want to understand what you mean by directly.
Directly asking in his capacity of vice president, has he been involved in
having... There's a vice president, there are state institutions, and there are leadership in government. And so whatever action that government takes, the vice president is directly part of it.
Yes, I mean, considering that he stands to lose the most in this particular matter.
It's not just our elections, Evans. I don't think that you are telling us that whatever the organized labor is doing is because there is an election. I think they are doing it from a genuine point of background. They are doing it genuinely because they are concerned about certain things that they believe is working to the detriment of the state. So let's not make it an election matter. The vice president is part of a government. Government is taking action and working with organized labor in dealing with this. The vice president being a candidate doesn't or cannot jump into the fray because he's going for an election. It's not an issue of who loses. The biggest loser in this is the state. If you shut down the country and the country is completely destroyed even before the elections, the vice president losing or winning an election is just an individual loss. But how does it benefit organized labor when the entire country is on its knees? So I don't think we should make this an election matter. Unless, of course, you are telling me that all of these that are going on is because of an election, which I doubt. I think organized labor have raised some genuine concerns, and those are things that must be looked at devoid of partisanship and elections. It is a country and a state matter that we are discussing. I think we should keep our eyes on those critical things.
For instance, the coalition have written directly to him, asking him to sign a pact to end illegal mining. That's why I asked that question. Has he seen that letter to him, and will he sign the pact?
The vice president's commitment towards ending illegal mining is without doubt. He's been in the past 6 months. He's been in the mining areas more than all the other candidates, and his position on illegal mining is very, 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 very clear. He stated it countlessly, and he's raised specific ways that he believes that based on all the efforts we have made and tried since 2010 as a country, what has worked, what hasn't worked. And based on all of these, he's itemized specifically systems, processes, and structures he believes could be another way of we as a country pursuing in ending this illegal mining canker, this criminality. And so he is ready and willing to sign whatever pact because he's already shown that that's commitment in everything he's been doing so far. So that's not a problem at all.
Dr. Ashigbe, music to your ears.
Well, definitely this is music. But I just want to tell my brother Miracle that there's nothing more at stake than the lives of everybody. And, when you get to a situation when there's such desperation, where you are being poisoned, where you have in August, Go back and look at the trends. August, you have, 14,000 NTUs instead of 5 NTU stability. That is the level of the crisis. And I completely agree with you. This has nothing to do with the next election. It has all to do with today's generation and the next generation. So I'm happy that the president is ready, the vice president and then the former president. His statement, I didn't hear him state categorically that. But I'm happy that we're going to get that, because the actions that His Excellency the President would have to take, and to borrow the words of the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, will be draconian. But you see, the point about it is that when it comes to the water bodies, that one is a law. There's no ban there. It's just about enforcing the law that we have refused to do, because you stand on the bridges, you can see the chamfans in the water bodies. You see people manufacturing the chamfans, and also it's just about, it is in the forest reserves. And again, in the forest reserves, there's no small-scale miner in there. We're asking that those be revoked, because that's where our waters take their sources for. And Miracle, please, when it comes to our lives, I'm not too sure that, there can be any negotiation about saving us from poisoning, about saving us from renal diseases, so there can be nothing. We cannot put any issue of profits or jobs against people who are dying and people who are doing an illegality. So I'm happy to hear that His Excellency the Vice President is ready to sign this pact and commit himself. And then we would need the former president also committing to that, so that after the 7th, whoever wins would also continue whatever actions that His Excellency the President would have to take now, because it's going to take us more than 3 months. It's going to take us years to be able to restore this back. And it would mean that all of us as a country, want to be united against one singular purpose of saving ourselves from damnation. And I'm happy to hear that His Excellency the Vice President will do that. And I'm hoping that His Excellency the former President will also do that, so that we can have them on record, not only on something they've written, but their voices, so that we can give them to all of you journalists. So you play it, so that we don't have anybody go and stand in Accra, in Kumasi, in Takrady, and tell us that they agree to the fight, the measures that the President is taking. And then they will go and stand in the pits, and then go and be telling people that they will form WhatsApp groups, or tell people that when they come back, they will let them come and, get back into the illegality. I am really happy, and it's a very important part of what the Media Coalition has asked for, and it's also one of the points that the organized labor has also added to their demands of our two political parties.
And talking about that, we heard from John Dramani Mahama today, and I played that clip when he met the clergy. Did you hear him speak to any of the 6 things you, together with organized labor, put before the government?
So I think he had mentioned the fact that they would deal. There's an adverb that he used with illegal mining.
They said ban new mining.
I didn't hear him speak directly.
So the part that came close was ban new mining leases. And forest
so
reserves.
I didn't hear him talk about the 5 points that the 4 points we had raised, which is the same as organized labor has raised. But maybe you would excuse him, because we depended on the question that he was being asked. So I'm sure if you had the same way Miracle has been able to respond to your question that you asked specifically now, maybe if we get an opportunity where you are asking that question again, maybe we would get a response from you. But it is important that from both parties we get their, unequivocal, support for these draconian measures that would get us people out of the water bodies and also from the forest reserves.
Thank you very much. Yes, Miracles. Yes, Miracles.
I think that, to be very honest with you, let me put this on record, and that's not even to flatter Mr. Kanashwe at all. But the conversations we've been having in the past weeks about Galamsey, I must admit that he's the first person I've heard really make the case for a solution to this canker without necessarily turning the eye to the other side. He's been quite straightforward. He's been quite balanced, and I think that if we should keep the conversation that way, we'll make a lot of progress. Again, it brings me to the point I made earlier, that dialogue can never, ever be out of the conversation, because even some of the demands and some of the things that, for example, organized labor is asking for, one would easily ask a question: how new are some of these things in terms of the country pursuing that cause to fix this illegality? you asked for a ban on small-scale mining. You recall that somewhere in 2018, thereabout, there was a ban on small-scale mining. In fact, there was a ban on small-scale mining for about a year and a half. And so the first question that anybody would ask is, did that solve Galamsey? And if it did, why are we still here? So these are some of the conversations that, even though organized labor have put into their demands, government would have to sit down with them and say, do we really think this is a solution to this? How about we try this? Okay, we're saying that this your proposition could work. Let's work together and implement it. And for me, those are the conversations that would be happening and should be happening in the next few days. I think that we should all keep a very open mind. We should all keep that very balanced mindset that we are trying to fix something that has to do with criminality. People who are working under the cover of darkness or with sometimes even social protection. And so it is a canker, it is an addiction. Any crime that we can think of can be equaled to Galamsey, even worse because of the damage that is causing to all of us as a people. But if we keep this kind of open-mindedness and balance in our conversation, like I'm hearing from Mr. Kanachigwe, trust me, we should be able to make some very, very, very quick headway in getting ourselves out of these things. But like I said, a lot of things have been tried since 2010, including systems, strategies by the former president who is speaking now during his tenure. He tried several ways to fight Galamsey. He could not succeed. We've also tried several ways since 2017, and we are still here. Shall we all put politics and partisanship aside, sit down around the table and say, what are the other ways we can use to fight this? If we think you are making a proposition that has been tried before, shall we just go and look into the books and see how that worked and how it didn't work so that we can take it out and move to the new ways of dealing with this matter? I think that is how we should sincerely look at this conversation. But Galamsey is a crime, just like armed robbery. Even though there is a police everywhere in this country, you still have robbery happening. And so we need to find ways to really deal with this matter without making it a political issue.
Thank you, Miracles. Grateful that you join us. Dr. Kenachigbe, I'm grateful too. And if you're just joining us, that major decision announced by organized labor is what is dominating the headlines tonight. They've declared an indefinite nationwide strike in 9 days, starting on the 10th of October. And in fact, it will include the private sector too, because as you've heard there, the convener of the Media Coalition Against Illegal Mining, they are mobilizing their own sector. He himself is the chief executive of the Telecoms Chamber. He says from the 10th, once the chamber will take a decision, they will lock up their offices. And so when you get there, you don't expect to see that office open because they will be on strike. He expects you to be on strike too. And how the GJ implements that, it says, will be decided and communicated in due course.